Hugh Freeze is 11-13 in his 2 seasons at Auburn, and going into this season, their total for over/under is 7.5. And if you're Hugh Freeze, knowing you're on the hot seat, you gotta hit that number this year. Let's get into it. Hugh Freeze has had a very interesting head coaching career, to say the least. Obviously, everyone remembers his time at Ole Miss, then gets caught up in recruiting violations and scandal after scandal, moves on, he finds himself at Liberty, kills it there, and now he's back in the SEC at Auburn for the last 2 seasons. And, well, it hasn't gone exactly how Auburn fans had thought it would. When Hugh Freeze was hired by Auburn, myself included, thought, okay, by year 2, year 3, Auburn will be back. And it's kind of been of a slow burn. He is heading into his 3rd season, and that is when you traditionally would expect a team to start to turn around and take on that coach's identity. But in the new NIL transfer portal era, that's not always the case. And what I mean by that is we live in a 24/7 sports news cycle to where it's got to have instant gratification. No one wants to take the time, and especially when you're in the SEC and you're at Auburn and your biggest rival is Alabama. Alabama, we all know what they did under Nick Saban, and recruiting has not taken a step back under Kalen DeBoer like a lot of people thought. I was not one of those people. But Auburn, they want to win, and I get it. So this is a big year for Hugh Freeze, and they attack the transfer portal, and they also have a couple key guys returning, one big name and 2 guys that I think will take another step forward. One guy take another step forward, another guy to really explode onto the scene. Auburn hit the quarterback position very hard in the transfer portal, and one of the guys that they got was Jackson Arnold, once a big-time recruit for Oklahoma, thought to be the next Sam Bradford, the next big-time Oklahoma quarterback, and it just didn't work out. He faced benching issues his career there, but now he's got a fresh start in Auburn. I think he fits Hugh Freeze's offense well and what they want to do down there well. I think a lot of pressure is put on Jackson Arnold. He committed to Oklahoma very early and was just looked at as to be their next, like I said, to Sam Bradford, if you want to look at their big rivalry, Quinn Ewers, even though Quinn Ewers did transfer. Took him into Ohio State, an Arch, a Colt McCoy, like that type of guy. Like, Oklahoma fans thought that they had their guy again at the position, and it just didn't work out. So he finds himself still in the SEC, but at Auburn under Hugh Freeze. And I think this marriage could be very well for both sides. And they also got quarterback Ashton Davis from Stanford. He's an up-and-down player at Stanford. Had some good moments, but also kind of had some moments. But, he's kind of a break glass in case of emergency and just trying to add in depth to that quarterback room. And then there's the guy that Auburn fans cannot wait for. Deuce Knight, decommitted from Notre Dame, flips to Auburn, and he's just got all the tools in the world to be an outstanding quarterback. Dual threat guy, can make plays with his arm, can make plays on the ground. I think Deuce Knight has a chance to be the best quarterback Auburn has had since Cam Newton. He's got everything. It's just about putting it together. Will we see him this year? That's the big question. I think if you're Auburn, you want to get him in sparingly, get those 4 games in and then let him redshirt. But if Jackson Arnold continues to not develop, if they try the Ashton Davis experiment and that doesn't go well, I think there's a good chance that we could see Deuce Knight in a break glass in case of an emergency, like a real break glass in case of emergency. But I think if you're Auburn, you're Hugh Freeze, and you're the staff, you kind of want to take this year as a redshirt year for Deuce Knight, let him continue to grow as a quarterback behind the scenes, and then next year really unload him. Kind of how Florida tried to do a DJ Lagway, but obviously Graham Mertz ended up getting hurt this past season. Damari Alston has spent all 3 years of college at Auburn. He's entering his senior season, and I think he's ready to explode onto the scene. He's had back-to-back really productive seasons, but just has never been that featured back. But with Auburn having a more consistent quarterback room and their receiver room really being loaded, I think Damari Alston takes a step forward, being that feature back this year for Auburn at some point in the season and just ready to explode onto the national college football scene. Auburn went out and got Eric Singleton Jr. from Georgia Tech, wide receiver, to add to this receiver room. Good player. A lot of people might not have watched him because he was at Georgia Tech, but Georgia Tech was a really good team last year, and Eric Singleton has been a productive college football player. He's a legit NFL prospect, and it really goes to show that Auburn they're taking it seriously in the sense of we got to add skill guys. We got to add guys on offense that can make a play, take a 7-yard in route and take it for 50 yards. somebody that can make a play over the top and just really expand and spread the football field. And then there's Cam Coleman. If you're a casual football fan that only watches the big games, or if there's a game on, you'll put it on for a little bit. You might not know who Cam Coleman is, but if you follow recruiting, you follow college football closely, you know who this guy is. In my opinion, he's on the same level as a Jeremiah Smith and a Ryan Williams. In my opinion, I think he is better than Ryan Williams. Cam Coleman is that dude, just quite frankly. He can do everything. You want him to go over the top, he can do that. You want him on an in route to go in between the safeties and linebackers, he's going to do that for you. He's a playmaker. And having Peyton Thorne, they just didn't have the quarterback to consistently be able to feature his skill set on a very, very consistent basis. But I think that they will go into the future, whether that be this year with Jackson Arnold or if we're looking into the future with Deuce Knight. Cam Coleman is a freak of nature. Cam Coleman can argue is a top 4 or 5 receiver in the nation, not just the SEC, the whole entire sport. Cam Coleman is that guy. And then there's Caleb Harris going into his sophomore season. As a freshman, he made a bunch of different all-conference and all-American teams. He's a beast at safety. You need him to come down on the box and help with run support. He can do that. You need him to drop back and cover over the top. He can do that as well. Caleb Harris is a guy. Auburn's got pieces. It's just about putting everything together. But getting Caleb Harris in the last year's recruiting cycle was a big win for this team. And just having that playmaker on that back end of your defense cannot be overstated. And then there's, quite frankly, Auburn's best defensive player and arguably their best player, Keldrick Falk, pass rushing specialist. When he decides to come out for the NFL draft, will be a first-round pick. Keldrick Falk is just a quarterback's worst nightmare. I think with Auburn continue to add more talent, it helps him. And even on offense, with them being able to hopefully get some leads early going to the fourth quarter when teams got a pass, it's going to allow Keldrick Falk to just unleash even more. And I could see him getting into the double-digit sack mark for this upcoming season. With all that being said, let's look at Auburn's schedule. They start the year off at Baylor. Baylor will be a much improved team, but I imagine Auburn can come out with the win there. Then they play Ball State and South Alabama for their non-conference schedule. And I think they're 3-0, and then you're heading right into conference play. You go to Oklahoma, and you got A&M. I think there's a good chance they go 0-2 there, but let's say they split there. And then you're 4-1. I do think they lose to Oklahoma. I just think Oklahoma is a much improved team this year. And I think Oklahoma, if you watch my previous video on them, I think they make the college football playoff. And then you hit your stretch where you have a bye. You got Georgia, you got Mizzou, you got Arkansas. I don't think they beat Georgia. Arkansas is that I could see them pulling that out, but that's even a toss-up. And then you play Missouri. I think Auburn, they take Missouri. Missouri didn't play a great game last year and squeaked by, but that's just because Peyton Thorne had an awful game in that game in Columbia. So I think Auburn does get the revenge on the Missouri Tigers this upcoming season. And then you take on Kentucky. I think Auburn beats Kentucky. Then you go to Vanderbilt. And this isn't your same Vanderbilt. Remember, they beat Alabama last year. They returned Diego Pavia, and they returned Stowers, their tight end. I think this game could be back and forth, and I wouldn't be surprised if Vandy pulls off the upset. Pavia has beaten Auburn before, if you remember when New Mexico State went into Auburn and beat them. Then they get their bye, take on Mercer. That's obviously a win. And then you take on Alabama in the Iron Bowl. That game could go either or. And if you've been counting or paying attention, I got Alabama at that 5, 6, 7 win mark. I don't know if they hit their over this year at that 7.5. And I think if you're Hugh Freeze, you have to hit that in order to keep your job. You can keep selling the administration and recruits on potential and what we're trying to be. But after year 3 and you're still not there, when we're in the sports coverage that we are, I don't know if he survives. I think Hugh Freeze is a fine coach, but there's been a lot of problems off the field, obviously, going back to his Ole Miss days, and even players not really just butting heads with him, quite frankly. I don't think Auburn returns to being Auburn this year. I still think they're a year or even 2 years away, and that's just kind of crazy to say. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. Please like, turn on post notifications, and leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think Auburn's record is at the end of this year, and if you think that Auburn will be back to being Auburn under Hugh Freeze.